going to open up the Finance Committee meeting for tonight, Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. Those in attendance, I see President Pro Tem Arman Nartates, Councilor Curtis Goodwin, Councilor James Burke, Councilor Dice, Councilor Curtis Goodwin. I'm still waiting for Councilor Sadi. I don't see him yet. And Councilor Booker also.
Okay, here.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm waiting for Councilor Sadi. Not sure if he's having trouble with trying to get in. I'm just going to give one more minute and then we'll just get started. We do have quorum. Just want to make sure that, thank you, Councilor Dice. I did text him to thank you, appreciate that. So we'll see. Well, while we wait for him, let me just go over really quickly just the notice for this meeting. Again, and this is, we're having it through virtual due to the ongoing national and state public health emergency caused by the global coronavirus pandemic. City of New London public meetings will be held virtually. Meeting agendas can be found at the New London government website, and an audio recording of this meeting will be posted on the city website within 7 days of the meeting. For public comment, you're more welcome to submit your comments to our administrative assistant to the council, Jennifer Starts, at jstarts@newlondon.org. The purpose of this meeting is again to review the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 budgets with the following departments. Just to restate some of the rules from, thank you, Councilor Sadi. Just to restate some of the rules from last night, we're gonna ask, as when it comes to asking questions, that you state your name, and then also if you have a response that you restate your name again. For example, President Dominguez speaking, or after President Dominguez responding. Very important, because this is all for the viewers and also for those that are calling in on their phones. So whether you're presenting or you're one of the counselors or either the mayor, finance director, Attorney Londrigan, anyone involved tonight's meeting, make sure that you state your name before you speak each time, okay? And again, the rules is 2 questions per counselors. Afterwards, if we have time, we're gonna rotate with additional questions, but we wanna be mindful of the time for every department head that is waiting, okay? And this meeting runs tonight until the last ones we have are 8:15, so it could probably get up to maybe 8:45. So with that said, I am going to begin by calling the Department of Probate. Judge Green, is he on?
Excuse me, President Dominguez?
Yes, President Dominguez speaking.
Are we gonna do a roll call, sir?
I already called out, announced the names.
Okay,
that were here.
all
That's
right.
all I had to do. And
All right, no problem.
when you said that you were here, we got you. And then
Okay,
I
thank you.
recognized Vice Councilor Sadi also.
All right, thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. All right. All right. So with that said, I am not sure if Judge Green is on.
President Dominguez, this is the mayor.
Yes.
Yes, Judge Green will not be attending. He's, his budget is what it is, and I think if the finance director if there's any questions about it, the finance director can answer them. Thank you. I thought we had got word to you on that. I apologize.
Yeah, this is Director McBride. I can give a brief snapshot. As the mayor indicated, it's the budget is $30,000 budget for the microfilm services, the communication services, and supplies. The main component of the $30,000 is the rent, which is approximately $17,000. As you know, the total budget is about $45,000. That budget is paid by the town of Waterford and the city of New London. It's based upon the grand list. 69% is paid by the town of Waterford, and the other 30% is paid by the city of New London, and that compromises the $30,000. So that's the makeup of the expenses. I'm not sure there's any questions. I know Deputy Director Reinhardt plays a critical role in this as well.
Thank you, President Dominguez speaking. Not sure if Deputy Director Donna Reinhardt wants to add anything.
This is Deputy Director Reinhardt. No, that basically talks about the whole thing.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Deputy Director Donna Reinhardt. Any councilors at this moment? We're going to start with President Pro Tem Nartatis. Do you have any questions?
I do not. This is President Pro Tem Nartatis. I do not have any questions. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. Next, Councilor Booker, do you have any questions?
This is Councilor Booker. I do not have any questions at this moment.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. At this time, Councilor Goodwin, do you have any questions?
Councilor Goodwin here. I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dominguez speaking. At this time, Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions? Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Do you have any questions for Director McBride?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, Councilor Burke, do you have any questions?
No questions regarding the probate budget. Thank you, Councilor President.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. At this time, Councilor Dice, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions?
This is Councilor Dice, and I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, at the end here, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. I don't have any questions either concerning the probate budget. Okay, we'll move on then to law. We have the law director present. Let's allow him to have a few minutes to share, and then we can begin with the questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Dominguez. This is Jeffrey Londrigan. I didn't do a mic check. Can everybody hear me? Fantastic. So again, for the record, Attorney Jeffrey Londrigan, and I say this every year, but I just want to thank the council and Mayor Passero for giving me the privilege of representing my hometown as its law director. As I say every year, it really is an honor, and I really do enjoy practicing municipal law and representing this council, the mayor, the administration, and the various city department heads, departments, boards, and agencies. What I've attempted to do again this year is what I think we've always done, which is offer exceptional legal service and representation within a reasonable fee structure and budget when compared to open market of legal services. I hope everybody got the email that I sent out earlier today, which was just sort of a summary of our requested budget and the appendix with the various areas. I know that many of the counselors have heard this before and know exactly what we do. In that appendix is laid out basically the tasks that our office does on the general side of the budget, and then the tasks that we do on the litigation side of the budget. And while it's not possible to forecast or anticipate who may sue the city or what the city is going to have to deal with in any particular fiscal year, a perfect example is the COVID-19 pandemic. If just looking at the time that our office has spent over the last 3 weeks and the invoice for March that went out, it was much higher than we usually see. And obviously this is just something that could not have been forecasted back in July when we were putting the legal budget together for this fiscal year. But, notwithstanding that, you never know what's around the corner. We can kind of forecast as best we can with assuming a level of reasonableness with what can and cannot occur. So what we do know for the next fiscal year, probably first and foremost, and the reason for a little bit of an increase in the requested budget for this year are the tax appeals. In October of 2018, the city did a townwide revaluation. When the town does this every 5 years, typically there are a number of tax appeals that are taken, people that feel that the revaluation of their property is excessive. So we currently have pending 49 tax appeals. Trials were supposed to have begun last month, but obviously with COVID-19, the courts are closed for those types of cases. The courts are still hearing what they call tier 1 cases, which are basically criminal or protective order type of cases, things that deal with personal safety of people. So the tax appeal cases right now are sort of on ice, but they will be ramping up, and they are all teed up for trials this coming fiscal year. We also know we have some union contracts that are opening up this year. So again, we kind of know what we anticipate having to deal with legal matters for the city for this coming fiscal year. We've been doing this long enough to know that and what we can reasonably forecast. So that's kind of what went into the request for some additional funding for this upcoming budget. Some of the adjustments between the 4 line items, the bottom line is it's a budget increase of $15,000. As I said, most of that is in anticipation of the trials on the tax appeals. Most likely we're not going to have 49 trials. A lot of these do ultimately wind up settling, but knowing the percentages of how many do go to trial and knowing what a trial is going to cost, we believe that $15,000 is not just being superfluous as far as the ask. That is going to be funding that is going to be necessary. In looking at the current fiscal year, we've done, I think, a really good job the last several years of coming in at or below budget. Last year, I think we were under by, a few $100, but it was still under. The year before that, we were under by a few $1,000s, which was good. Actually, a couple maybe about 10 or about $20 or $25,000. We don't know what the next 75 days is going to bring. With the courts being closed, I know that my litigation budget probably is going to remain pretty steady. The general side of things is definitely amping up with all of the COVID-19 obstacles and the changing landscape that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But overall, I think if there is to be any overrun this year, it's going to be de minimis, and we should be able to keep it on budget, which is always the task. And I think with this increase for next year, we'll still be able to be under budget, even anticipating the litigation schedule that we see on the horizon. So again, it's not an exact science, but I think the budget that we're asking for is reasonable in light of what we believe to be coming down the road for the next fiscal year. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions anybody has on the budget or on any of the services outlined in that report and appendix that was emailed earlier today.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Attorney Landrigan. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Booker, do you have any questions for Attorney Landrigan?
No, not at this moment.
Okay. Councilor Goodwin, do you have any questions for Attorney Landrigan?
Counselor Goodwin speaking. I do not have questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions for Attorney Landrigan?
Counselor Sadi speaking. I have no questions at this time.
Okay. Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for Attorney Landrigan?
Counselor Burke, no questions for Attorney Landrigan. Thank you very much.
Councilor Dice, do you have any questions for Attorney Landrigan? This is President Dominguez speaking.
This is Counselor Dice, and at this time, I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. And President Pro Tem, do you have any questions for Attorney Landrigan? This is President Dominguez speaking.
This is President Pro Tem Hurtado. I just want to thank you, Attorney Lonergan, for your continuous support, dedication for the city of New London. Thank you.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. I would like to echo the same reasons there. Thank you for all the work that you do in your office for the city and for the residents. With that said, we'll move on to the next. Thank you.
This is Jeffrey Landrigan. Thank you very much for the kind words, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Okay. That's it. Let's proceed on to, this is President Dominguez speaking. We'll continue with the Health District. Yes, go ahead.
Jennifer Maggio, Deputy Director of Ledgelight Health District. I'm pleased to be here tonight. I want to echo the Law Director's sentiments about being honored to be able to do this work in my city. And thank you all for your service to our city. The budget for Ledgelight, as you are aware, is based on a per capita rate that is set by the Board of Directors and is the same per capita rate for each of our member municipalities. That rate for this coming fiscal year will be $737. That is the same per capita rate that we have this year and in fact 2 years previous. So we have, going into next year, not increase the per capita rate for 4 years. And because of a slight decrease in New London's population as reported to us by the Department of Public Health, it actually then results in a budget decrease of $980 from the current fiscal year. Happy to answer any questions about our budget or activities.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Goodwin, do you have any questions for the Health District?
Counselor Goodwin speaking. I do not. Pleasure to meet you virtually.
All right. At this time, thank you. President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions?
This is Counselor Sadi. I do not have any questions of the Ledgelight Health District.
Thank you. President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for Ledgelight Health District?
This is Counselor Burke. No, I do not, but thank you very much for being here with us tonight, Jen, for all the work that you do.
Okay. President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Dice, do you have any questions for Ledgelight?
This is Counselor Dice, and I do not have any questions, but I do have to say thank you for all that you're doing right now in our community, and we so appreciate it. Thank you.
This is President Dominguez speaking. I'd like to also echo the same thing. Thank you so much during this pandemic. I can't even imagine. I mean, all the work that you guys are doing behind the scenes and you know, throughout the city, and not only our city, but throughout the county. So we really appreciate it. With that said, I'm going to ask if President Pro Tem Nartates, do you have any questions for Ledgelight Health District?
Yeah, just, hi, Jen. Just one quick question. You said that as a result of the decrease, we had how many people less that were accounted for? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I have the dollar amount of the decrease was 980. So let me do the math backwards there for a second.
So I guess my main question for you, this is President Pro Tem Nurtadis, is that do you think that number is accurate? That's coming from Department of Labor, correct?
So, and I apologize, this is Jen Maggio responding to that question. The number comes to us from the Department of Public Health each year.
Okay.
As you might know, I've been active on New London's Complete Count Committee.
Right.
And we've had lots of discussions about how our count might not be accurate.
Right.
But we are required by statute to base our submission to our municipalities on that population figure as estimated and given to us by the Department of Public Health. So should we be successful in our efforts to have a more accurate count with the census, then that we may see that population figure for future fiscal years be adjusted upward. But right now it's stemming from DPH taking what they know from the last census and their estimates of births and deaths, and also the updates that come from the Census Bureau from the American Community Survey.
Okay, thank you. This is President Pro Tem Nurtadis. Thank you. So we may, I'm not so confident that number is correct, right? And I'm disappointed to see a reduction, but we know that. So we'll see what the future holds. Thank you for answering that. Thank you, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez speaking. You're welcome, President Pro Tem Nurtadis. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Booker, do you have any questions for Jen?
This is Councilor Booker. I just want to thank you very much, Jennifer Maggio, for the phenomenal work you and your team are doing. And I do not have any other questions. Do not have any questions right now for Ledge Light Health District. Thank you very much and continue to work.
Hey, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. And again, thank you very much, Jen, for all you're doing and your team.
This is Jen Maggio responding, and I just want to thank all of the counselors for your kind words tonight and your support. And stay 6 feet apart and wash your hands.
President Dominguez responding. Thank you, Jen, very much. We'll do so. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to Port Authority. Presentation. This is President Dominguez speaking. Mr. Mayor Passero, do you know if they're on? Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Is this for Port Authority?
This is Kathy Walburn with the Port Authority.
Great, Kathy, welcome to our meeting. And you're on right now. You have some at least 3 minutes to present, and then we will turn it over to the councilors who have questions for you.
Sure thing. Well, the Port Authority, basically, the way we do our budget is we look at what last year is. If we made a little more money bringing in some dockage fees, then we increase our budget by what we think is going to come in. So basically, what we take in is what we spend on repairs and maintenance of the waterfront.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Right. Yes, yes. Are you done? All right, this is President Dominguez speaking.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, at this time, thank you, Kathy. At this time, I'm going to open up to councilors. Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions for the Port Authority?
Councilor Sadi, I have no questions at this point in time.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for the Port Authority?
Yeah, one quick question. This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, President Sadi. Yeah, so I mean, as liaison to the Port Authority, I've definitely familiarize myself with this budget. Just a hot topic, as we are moving to uncertain futures with the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, do we have an idea if mooring and dockage fees, might see a reduction this season? Is it still too early to tell? Just maybe a brief summary on that.
At this point, I think it's still too early to tell. I mean, we are forecasting dockage for SailFest, which we actually have received some interest in it. So we believe it will be more than last year. And until we actually get to the end of this month and through this, in Connecticut anyways, the top of the COVID-19 as whether or not we reached our peak, I think we can't outrule a good season on the waterfront for the summer.
Well, I definitely appreciate that optimism, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on that. Thank you very much. No further questions, Mr. President.
Yeah, for the record, that was Councilor Burke speaking. At this time, I'm going to ask, this is President Dominguez speaking now. Does Councilor Dice have any questions?
This is Counselor Dice speaking, and I do not have any question at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, I'm going to ask if President Pro Tem Nartates has any questions for the Port Authority.
This is President Pro Tem Nartates. I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. President Dominguez speaking now. I'm going to ask if Councilor Booker Jr. has any questions for the Port Authority.
This is Councilor Booker. I do not have any questions for Port Authority at this moment.
Thank you. President Dominguez speaking. Now, Councilor Goodwin, do you have any questions for the Port Authority?
This is Councilor Goodwin speaking. I do have one quick question. So I noticed in 2018 for the marketing and advertising budget, it was $3,870. In 2019, it was $1,288, and then it increased last year to $10,000. Then it's staying steady at $10,000. Could you speak to those increases?
Because we actually did have a very good year last year, bringing in some dockage fees for the waterfront, we wanted to increase our advertising budget. So that's what we did. We moved some money into there.
Got it. I figured I'd ask, and a very timely given the situation we're in. I'm sure those marketing dollars will come in handy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For the record, that was Councilor Booker that was speaking. I'm sorry, Councilor Goodwin that was speaking. Do we have any additional questions? Anybody have an additional question to ask? If not, we will move on. Thank you, Kathy, from the Port Authority, for everything that you do and the time that you volunteer.
Thank you as well.
Thank you. For the record, that was Kathy from the Port Authority speaking. And with that said, we will continue with the last one here, which is Ocean Beach Park. David Suguru.
Yeah, Dave Suguru is here.
Yes, thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I appreciate your time tonight. And before I say anything, I just want to wish you all and your families the best in health in the coming days. Everybody stay healthy. As an update, Ocean Beach Park continues to be one of the only places you can enjoy locally. We've posted distance signs encouraging people to do what they need to do and are asking people to stay to their right on the boardwalk and other walkways to limit interactions. We've seen many people enjoying the park in recent days, but unfortunately the virus has put us and everyone out of the catering business. So far, about $73,000 in business has been impacted here at the park. We're rescheduling wherever possible, but at least $19,000 in business has been canceled. We're taking every possible step to cut costs, including labor costs. You should have gotten three documents from Jennifer earlier today. The first one is the proposed rates for summer 2020. Ultimately, you have the authority to approve these rates or make any changes you'd like to. The only change that we recommended was going from $10 to $15 in fireworks nights. We've upped the entertainment on these nights, and the attendance has been great. We think it's worth it. A lot of local people have season passes, so it won't impact the locals, getting more revenue from people coming here from out of town. We considered proposing other price increases this year, as you see on that sheet. It's been a while since we've gone up on anything, but with the current state of affairs, we didn't think it was a smart move to increase pricing across the board this year. You'll also see a note at the bottom of the pricing explaining the state of Connecticut has proposed taxing beaches for parking. We've been talking to them. We don't have an answer yet, but we've explained to them that our charge is more of an admission charge for a carload of people. So it's not really a parking charge because there's all kinds of services here. They seem to understand that, but they haven't given us an answer yet. But if we do have to pay the tax, we propose adding the tax to these fees if necessary, rounding to the nearest dollars. Hopefully we can get your thoughts on these prices ASAP, as if we're allowed to, we'd like to start selling season passes at the earliest opportunity. The second document you have is the entertainment schedule for the coming summer, which I think is the best ever. Obviously, everything's tentative right now with summer, but we've got some really good shows lined up. Start with our job fairs, and if you have any kids that need work this summer, please send them our way. We'll be hiring about 150 kids. We've got the 7th annual Beach Park Polka Days coming. Brings people here from 26 different states, fills all our hotels, restaurants, etc. We have our classic car cruise nights. We have magic nights, movie nights. And Thursday, we now alternate between country line dancing and salsa dancing. We have 3 fireworks shows planned. We've got a Beatles tribute, ABBA tribute coming back. They were great last year. We've got Bob Marley tribute, Prince tribute, Elton John tribute, Penubian Steel Band, Soul Sound Review, which is a Motown tribute, Noche Latina, which is a great event now. We've got our Pride Day coming back, Military Appreciation Day, lots of volleyball tournaments, and of course our Make-A-Wish Day. Just wanted to point out that Ocean Beach Park turns 80 this year, so we planned a birthday party similar to what we did on the 75th, which I believe was the biggest night the park ever had in its history. We plan on fireworks, birthday cake, laser show, Beatles tribute band, and possible circus act. It's planned for June 26th, so hopefully we'll have all this behind us by then. We're continuing to book and sell space in the banquet rooms and the new Rotary Club Pavilion. A lot of momentum's picked up in the booking with the facilities and both being improved. Other improvements for the park this year, many golf greens are being replaced. We gutted the Nautilus room, the restrooms, painted the entire room. We're getting 2 windows replaced. We've got 17 new functions booked in that room since we've done that work. We've worked on an important starboard service hallway. We redecorated the women's room and that whole back area where you used to come into the main entrance. New Pepsi equipment and sandbar and pavilion. We've got a new point of sale system coming, which we're really excited about for the cafeteria and the sandbar. We were able to get without cost from another company unit that closed. We have plans to increase boardwalk this year. We're gonna have to see what summer brings. We just participated in a bridal show at Mohegan Sun. We booked 8 weddings. We've got more interested. Last year, we put a new roof on the Nest classroom, and we also upgraded all electrical in the Nest classroom. We have a new poured epoxy kitchen in the main kitchen, and recently rebuilt the tractor. And then your third document is a working budget that I come up with for you every year for the next year. I always try to stay conservative, but we could do much better. But the weather's always been our biggest factor. We've got COVID in play as well. So as always, if you have any questions, concerns, go ahead.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez. Thank you, David. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Burke if you have any questions for David.
Thank you, This is Councilor Burke. Thank you, President Dominguez. Yeah, just one question about just a clarification. Is it on the parking passes? Does a resident parking pass also to ride your bike that day?
It can. We often do that for the local neighbors, people who live in the area. Yes.
Okay. Just just wondered on that. That's my only question at this time. Thank you very much. This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Dice if you have any questions for David.
This is Councilor Dice speaking, and I just want to, this is for you, President Dominguez. I want to make sure, I was just reviewing the price and it was mentioned that we have to approve it. That won't be done tonight, correct? We will have time to discuss it.
This is President Dominguez speaking. Yes. Yes, I know that David wanted to see if we could get this as soon as possible. David, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, because you want to start selling those tickets, you said, right?
As soon as we're allowed to, yes.
Okay, so we're gonna probably have that, eventually when we imagine approval of the whole entire budget. That we still got a couple meetings anyways. So yes, you're correct. You're correct, Councilor Dice.
Okay, and this is Councilor Dice speaking again. I just want to say, last year I had the opportunity to be at Ocean Beach quite a bit, and I enjoy the festivities, the different bands, and I'm reviewing it now. I just want to say good job, and I hope everything work out where we all can enjoy Ocean Beach again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. It's going to be awfully nice to be on the boardwalk this summer. Be better than ever.
Yes, that's what President Dominguez speaking. That was Dave for the record for Ocean Beach speaking. At this time, I'm going to ask President Pro Tem Nartates, do you have any questions for Dave?
Yes, this is President Pro Tem Nartates, Dave Chagru. I do have a question. Councilor Burke had asked a question regarding the parking fees, and I know we're going to go over this. It's going to be on the agenda for April 20th to review the documents. There'll be discussion, but I wasn't quite clear on that. Are you saying that somebody who has a resident parking can also go through the pedestrian? Is that, how do they do that?
They have, we let them come through sometimes with their receipts, especially if the park is full. The last thing we want to do is have a resident not be able to get into the park if they have a season pass.
So in addition to the sticker they put on their car, they are also, if they hold a receipt in their wallet, they're allowed to walk through. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yes, they can use either or. A lot of residents have the flex passes. You know, people upgrade to the flex pass, so they'll use those in a lot of cases as well. They can use them on any vehicle.
This is President Pro Tem Nartates, which is less expensive, it looks like, for $40.
It's more expensive. Yeah, it's an add-on.
Oh, it's an add-on. Okay, all right. This is, okay, thank you, Mr. Chagru. This is President Pro Tem Nartates. This is a question for Director of Finance on tab 47, under contribution to Ocean Beach. We have an increase in the amount of 40,000. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes, this is Director McBride. I believe the material that you received from Dave Chagru had indicated the P&Ls for the past few years and how the performance was at Ocean Beach. In 16, the city made about 250,000. In 17, paid New London 256,000. In 18, there was a loss. New London had to pay 18,000, and in 19, there was $122,000 loss. And as a result of that, we still owe the city the Ocean Beach some additional money. So the average that we've allotted for the past few years has been 60,000. In working with Deputy Director Reinhardt, she believed that that number should increase by 40,000 to make up for some of the shortfall. So we have it at 100,000 now for that $40,000 increase. And I'm not sure if Deputy Director Reinhardt has any additional information she'd like to provide as well.
This is Deputy Director Reinhardt. We still owe Ocean Beach 62,000 that we didn't have budgeted in the last year's budget. So we increased it with the hope that last summer the weather was pretty good, and hopefully we will have enough in there to cover when we get our bill this year.
Thank you. This is President Pro Tem Nartates. So my question is back to, either one of you can answer this. In light of the pandemic and in light that this may in fact go into the summer, and what we just heard from Mr. Chagru, where are we going to see that makeup in lost revenue?
In speaking with Dave Chagru regarding the budget, he's still hopeful. Dave, you can attest after our conversation. He's still hopeful that there will be a profit from a strong June. So we did not believe we needed to increase the revenue or the cash infusion for next year. But Mr. Chagru, can you add some commentary on that?
Sure. It's all up to how strong June is with COVID and as importantly, the weather. I mean, we've done, anywhere between $500,000 and $900,000 for the month of June. So if we have a good, hot, sunny June and the kids are out of school, we'll do real well.
And I think this is Director McBride. If there was a situation where things didn't go as well as planned, I think based upon past practice, we wouldn't necessarily need to pay the money right away in next year's budget. We would do it the following year based upon what Deputy Director has informed me in past practice with Dave Chagru.
Thank you. This is President Pro Tem Nartates. So worst case scenario, if we don't knock it out of the park in June, we may owe, the city may owe additional funds. That's what I'm hearing, correct? Okay.
Yes, that's always the way it works. Yes.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
President Leming is speaking. That was David Shagru from Ocean Beach Park responding. With that said, I'm going to ask Councilor Booker if you have any questions for David Shagru from Ocean Beach Park.
This is Councilor Booker. I do not have any other questions. Do you have any questions at this moment? Thank you.
President Leming is speaking. You're welcome. At this time, I'm going to ask if Councilor Goodwin has any questions for Dave from Ocean Beach Park.
This is Councilor Goodwin speaking. I just had one question. Just needed clarity on the reason as to why the decrease for $1,783,767 in our contribution to debt services.
This is Director McBride. The tab that was provided as the backup was the interfund transfer tab. We're going to be going through various components of that tab. For this particular discussion on Ocean Beach Park, you would only need to relate to the fourth column from the bottom, the contribution to Ocean Beach Park, which we're recommending $100,000 budget for next year. We will be going through some of the others at various times throughout the budget process.
This is Councilor Goodwin speaking again. Thank you for that clarity. I also echo some of the sentiments as Council Pro Temp says, but I'm sure we can have other conversations with regards to the effects of COVID-19. I also would like to see some of the history of like June, how June historically performs, to see if there's any weather patterns that are indicated. For instance, is it pretty steady? Is it the same amount budgeted that has been done year over year in June? Do you have any information on hand as it relates to weather patterns for the month of June? And this would be for Dave Shagru.
Okay, Curtis, thank you. This is Dave Shagru. Yeah, June can be anything. It's so early in the summer. I'm just looking at, I'm seeing the Junes where we've done 500,000. I'm seeing a June where we did $800,000 in business. So, I mean, that's a big stretch. And when you start doing more volume, a lot of it drops right to the bottom line because your overhead is paid for. So it's always different.
Got it. And my last question would be in terms of entertainment, which I have to commend you on the variety of entertainment. I myself has been a frequent visitor to Ocean Beach due to entertainment. Had a question around entertainment. Do you base the entertainment schedule based on what they impact or contribute to revenue for the day?
We do. We take a look at each one of them on the nightly shows. And take a look at what we bring in compared to what we pay out for the entertainment and the sound, et cetera. So we're looking at every one of those shows constantly. Some are better than others, but they all seem to be doing better at night, which is good news, especially the tribute band nights.
Got it. I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you as always. And I am hopeful, as the rest of us are, for an amazing June and amazing beach schedule.
We sure are. Thank you, Counselor.
President Leming speaking. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Sadi if you have any questions for Dave from Ocean Beach Park.
Councilor John Sadi, Dave, thanks for everything that you do and that Ocean Beach does for our community. We had a resident in a few meetings ago, maybe 2 months ago now, who had asked the council to seriously consider waiving the fee for resident children. And I take a look at your schedule. It looks as though it's $10 per year for a child, a resident child, to get a season walk-in pass. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilor Sadi, that is correct. Unfortunately, not a lot of kids take advantage of it. I don't know if we're not doing a good enough job marketing it or if we need some help from the school.
Well, that was going to be my next question is, how many children use the resident pass?
It's not that many at all, John. I wish it was more.
Would we say it's 10 or 100 or 1,000?
I'd have to look at the records, but it's probably 40, 50. It's not a big number.
So when we go to approve your fee schedule, how much would it hurt for you for us to decrease the resident child walk-in pass to 0?
The only thing I ever worry about with a 0 number is that, people would get them that aren't going to use them, and we would tie up a lot of resources and labor, and doing all the paperwork for it. But ultimately, it's your decision. If you want them to be free, I have no problem at all with that. I'd rather see the London kids down here and enjoying a park, and we've got everything here that they want, all the entertainment we put on. Why would you want to keep the London kid outside the park? I'm all in favor of it, John.
If you would do me a favor then, if you could please take a look at your records over the last few years and prior to our next council meeting, just get to us what that figure is, because again, if we're dealing with 500,000, 900,000 per month, 40 passes times 10, if that's what the average has been for the last 5 years, we're talking $400 or $500. So
Completely agreed.
So do you think you'll be able to do that before our next council meeting?
Yeah, I can tell you there's not many though, right off the bat, and it might even be less than 40.
I would just sort of like to know, this year if there's 40 and if next year there's 500, do we consider that a loss of 50,000 in revenue, or do we just say it's great, that because they were free, more kids enjoyed the beach?
No, it's probably $400 or $500 total in revenue for the summer. And if that's keeping some kids out, it's not worth it. And these people aren't taking up parking spots either, so it's not hurting our real revenue. So I'd be all for it. But I'll get you the exact number, John. I'll work on that.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, John Sadi. And on that, David, could you send the information to our administrative assistant to the council, Jennifer Starts? Because the plan is to usually approve this in our next meeting, which is April 20th. You can have the opportunity to start selling tickets and, try to get some revenue as we wait for this COVID-19 to die out eventually. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you everything for you do for Ocean Beach Parks, for the city, and for your investment too.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
President Dominguez speaking. That was Dave Shagru from Ocean Beach Park responding. Okay, let me see what's next here. All right, it's 6:15 now. Nope, I'm sorry, 6:19. We're going to continue. We're going to move on right now to Police Department. Chief Riker, are you on, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. You have about 3 minutes to present, and then we'll move it on to the councils for questions. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me this evening, everybody. I'm working from my desk like everybody else is. Just to advise, the New London Police Department's budget is broken up into 5 different divisions. Division 1 is our administrative division. The chief's office is included in that. Number 2 is our patrol operations division, which includes everything in uniform services. Division number 3 is our detective division. And number 4 is our record division, support services, and the dispatch center. And division 5 is our animal control facility. When you look at the budget, if you're looking for anything related to police vehicles or maintenance of vehicles, we do not carry that in the department budget. That is carried in the public works budget for the fleet maintenance, along with fuel for the vehicles. Any other questions about how we're broken up, please feel free to ask.
This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Chief Reichard. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Dice, do you have any questions for Chief Reichard?
This is Councilor Dice. At this time, I don't, but if you could please come back to me. If we have time, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. You're more than welcome, Councilor Dice. At this time, I'm going to ask President Pro Tem Nartatis if you have any questions for Chief Reichard.
Yes, thank you. This is President Pro Tem Nartatis. Chief, I just two quick comments on tab 18. On other supplies, we talk about fingerprinting supplies. We had a reduction of $1,000, but are we really seeing a savings in two things? One, the fact that we've outsourced the fingerprinting services, and two, we have outsourced the program for registered burglar alarms. How does that represent the budget, and are we seeing a cost savings?
We have not realized any cost savings yet from outsourcing burglar alarms. We just started that in the beginning of January of this current fiscal year. So we do not have any data on that yet with the company that we're working with. When it relates to fingerprinting supplies, that company that we are outsourcing our fingerprinting has been doing all that. They provide all the supplies, so we do not get the income coming in from the fingerprinting. However, if you look at the manpower versus the amount of money we were bringing in from fingerprinting, we were losing probably between $7 and $12 per person we fingerprinted. So the number of supplies that we are using is actually going down. One thing I also learned just yesterday from the state of Connecticut is probably the second or third quarter of fiscal year 2021, the entire state, all law enforcement agencies will be changing the type of fingerprinting machines that we have with the state contract, which is unfunded by the state. So we'll have to take another look at that when we move forward.
Thank you, Chief. This is President Pro Tem Hurtado. It's an unfunded mandate is what you're saying?
Correct, an unfunded mandate by the state of Connecticut, but we do currently budget our current AFIS fingerprinting machine in our budget under some of our computer software programs. So we'll just be moving money from one company and looking at a contract with another company that the state is, it's basically they're requiring everyone to switch to this.
This is President Pro Tem Hurtado. Thank you for answering my questions. That's all I have, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, President Pro Tem Hurtado. That was Chief Riker responding to your questions. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Booker if you have any questions for Chief Riker.
Yes, this is Councilor Booker. I have two questions for Chief Riker. Tab 17, for training, you have currently spent $1,442 and are requesting to budget $15,000 for next year. What will this training money be used for? As it seems you have spent considerably less this year than you budgeted for. For this year, you have budgeted $15,000.
We budget $15,000 annually for the training division. Out of that, approximately $13,500 goes to the Law Enforcement Council, or the LEC that you might hear of. They are our regional training council. They do all our promotions, they do all our in-service training, and they do all our hiring background testing for us. If it hasn't hit this, that's because we have not been billed by them yet for the current fiscal. They go by calendar year, we go by fiscal year.
Okay, thank you for that. And another question I have is tab 19. Why is there such a large increase in health insurance? There is a 60% increase for our current year to next year. On tab 18, there was a 18% increase in the cost of health insurance. Why are these two numbers so different?
We're going to have to refer that to the finance director's office. I don't have the information on the increases in health insurance at the present time.
Okay, thank you very much. Director McBride?
Yeah, this is Director McBride. We did a thorough review of all of the benefits throughout the entire city. And as I indicated last evening, the majority of the change is a 10% overall increase in healthcare. However, there were numerous changes that we had to make, and some of the police and fire departments were the most significant in that we revised the distribution to be more accurately reflect an individual's what they chose. We had some coded in last year's budget that may have been single or spousal, so we had to upgrade that to a family plan if they were electing a family plan, and that additional cost was significant because each of the family plans is a cost to the city of about $30,000. So there were several changes, and this was one of the areas that was significant.
Thank you very much. No further questions. Councilor Booker.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Booker. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Goodwin if you have any questions for Chief Riker.
This is Counselor Goodwin speaking, excuse me. I do not have any questions at this present time. Thank you.
This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. I almost said Booker too. Councilor Goodwin. Let's have now Councilor Sadi. Do you have any questions for Chief Reichert?
Yes, thank you very much. So this is actually for a better explanation from the finance director in reference to the question that I believe was Councilor Booker asked regarding health insurance. Whereas some health insurances are increasing by 10%, but it looks as though the line item on this health insurance is increasing by about 50%.
Yeah, this is Director McBride. There were numerous changes in that division as well as a few others. So baseline, department over department, the majority of the healthcare changes were 10% increase if there was no change in staffing levels. This particular division, as well as a few others, had additional changes, whereas an individual may have been coded in last year's budget, potentially as an opt-out, and it was only a $3,000 cost to the city. If that individual's choice of plan, health care plan, changed to a higher cost to the city, that was reflected, and we had numerous changes from last year's budget to what the actual election was of healthcare. As an example, the gross healthcare for family is over $30,000. If, for instance, we had coded somebody and they had elected an opt-out last year, it would have been a $3,000 cost to the city. But because they may have changed their plans to a family plan, that cost to the city was an additional $30,000. So there were numerous individual changes in that regard, as well as the 10% increase. Hopefully that answers your question.
Well, without having the ability to check it, it's a little bit hard, but these budgets are a little bit harder to follow than in previous years. So this is for Chief Reichert. And I was looking at the Uniform Services Division, and I believe the number that it talked about was 53 officers.
Looking back at that, I counted 54 when I went through the budget.
All right. And I believe the number that we usually deal with is somewhere around 66 or 68 or 9.
That would be entire department. That would be patrol, support services, and the investigation division added together.
And so, and does that also include administration?
That does not include the administration. The only uniform service and administration is myself. I'm the only sworn in administration.
And so we have 54 uniformed officers. How many support officers do you believe we have?
When I went through and I added everybody up in the current budget we're submitting, I have 72 sworn positions that we're requesting funding for.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this point in time.
Hey, President Dominguez speaking. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Burke if you have any questions for Chief Reichert.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just one quick one. On tab 18, Uniform Services, the uniform payroll increase of $235,499. Is this increase just due to contractual salary increases, or are there actually any man hours being added?
I believe it's an increase in the number of personnel and a salary, 2% salary pay raise that takes effect.
So it's a combination of both, essentially.
Yeah, it's manpower, increase in manpower and increase in salary.
That answers my question. Thank you very much. No, nothing further. This was Councilor Burke. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. At this time, Councilor Dice, I'm going to return back to you, just in case if you have a question for Chief Reichert.
This is Councilor Dice. My question was with the police private protection. That I don't know what tab it is because I took everything out. I only have the title. And I just want to make sure I understand it. This is when we see off, not off duties, but special patrol, like maybe outside where there's detail because they're doing service on the road. That's how this revenue is gathered or is made. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I understand it because unfortunately on this page it doesn't have it doesn't explain in detail, and I want to make sure I understand.
Yes, our police private protection, or the PPP, which we call it, is budgeted separate from the rest of the department because it is above and beyond. This covers officers who are on private assignments, whether it be a road job, whether it be working Ocean Beach Park, or whether at one of our schools during special events, where they're actually compensated a time and a half rate to actually do that above and beyond their regular 40-hour work week.
This is Counselor Dice, and just a follow-up question. So basically, this budget, it brings the revenue it brings in, that's what it put out?
It brings in much more than it's put out. On top of we bill $75 per hour per officer, plus we do a 30% administration fee on top of that. And if they want to have a police car on site, it's $50 per hour to have a police vehicle there. So it adds up considerably. If you look at the past number of years, what we've had, we budget enough so we can pay forwards the officers for their salary. We're required to pay them for their work every 2 weeks. And then we recoup money by billing out to these companies separately. And the money goes back to the city.
Okay, this is Counselor Dice. It was tab 49. Thank you, President Dominguez. And just one thing, I just want to say, this is a good example. I mean, good job. This is a good example when I'm looking at the healthcare costs. Why it's important to have healthcare for all, because I'm watching how each of the budget for each of the personnel for the staffing is such a large increase. So thank you so much, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez speaking. You're more than welcome, Councilor Dice. At this time, is there any further questions from any other councilor? Okay, if not, Chief Riker, thank you.
Councilor Booker?
Oh, go ahead, Councilor Booker. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, President Dominguez. This is Councilor Booker. I have a question for tab 49. Why is there an increase of $50,000 in revenue going to be collected from the Board of Education?
In years past, the Board of Education decided on their own that they were going to pay us $50,000 for the school resource officer. We bill them for 10 months of salary and benefits, which is a little over $104,000. So we're expecting to collect the whole $104,000 from the Board of Education for the services of a school resource officer.
So even though there's only one school resource officer at this moment that you're using, which is at the high school?
That is correct.
So you're billing them for two school resource officers?
No, we are not. We bill them for 10/12 of the officer's salary and benefits, the number of months that they're in the school.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Chief Riker.
You're welcome.
That's Councilor Booker.
President Dominguez speaking. That was Councilor Booker, and that was Chief Riker responding to the questions. With that said, Chief Riker, thank you for your time. Thank you for everything that you do for the city and your fellow officers, and for keeping the city safe and doing everything that you can as first responders to keep the crime low and keeping our streets safe. With that,
thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask at a later time. Thank you.
That was President Dominguez speaking and Chief Riker responding. All right, with that said, our next slot will be at 6:45. So we have 9 minutes. So you can sign off or not sign off, I'm sorry, silence, and then we'll see each other in about 9 minutes. Thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, we'll continue with the budget hearing. We have now Parking Authority, which is tab 65. Parking Director Red, are you on?
West Tarpon. I mean, I could try the one in Wallingford, but.
Council President, can you hear me?
Yes, is this Kerry Red, Director Red?
Yes, it is, Council President.
Okay,
It's
sir.
Kerry Red.
Yes, sir. We're waiting for you. Thank you. Right now, we're starting with you. It's tab Parking Authority, tab number 65. I'm sorry, tab 65. And you may proceed. You have about 3 minutes, and then we'll bring it to the councilors to ask any questions.
Right here. It's next to Walmart.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the New London Parking Authority, Board of Commissioners, the staff and vendors, I'd like to thank you, Council President, President Pro Tem Perez, Councilor Booker, Councilor Burke, Councilor Dice, and Councilor Goodwin for allowing our team to present the proposed fiscal year 2021 budget. We believe that after much collaboration with the city's administration,
Dan.
led by Mayor Michael Passero and Department of Finance Director David McBride, the NLPA's budget is achievable in both revenue as well as the expenses. It is important to note that the New London Parking Authority strives to be the best parking system in America as it supports the economic development strategies of the city while providing the residents and the taxpayers with the highest return on investment possible to assist the city in lowering taxes. The NLPA endeavors to assist the administration in lowering our residents and taxpayers' mill rate by self-funding the parking system construction projects, as well as management, operations, and parking systems. I would like to point out that we continue to work in collaboration with our principal departments, Department of Public Works, Finance, Human Resources, and Office of Planning, Development and Planning. It looks positive that we will continue to do so. It must be said that Attorney Jeffrey Lundgren has done an outstanding job. His counsel and advice has been spot on. Most recently, we negotiated very hard to bring a new state-of-the-art parking citation information management system to the city that includes pay-by-phone option at no additional cost above our current expenditures and below those levels domestically. In addition, we are currently working to renegotiate our management fees with Last Parking, resulting from the negative impact of COVID-19 on the NLPA's revenue outlook in FY29. There are 4 main current projects that I'd like to highlight. The one was a systematic expedient process utilized to transfer Electric Boat's employee parking rights from the Water Street Garage to Fort Trumbull due to the COVID-19 social distancing requirements. The executive management team, the mayor, Last Parking, and NLPA staff worked tirelessly to make this happen. I would also like to commend Sammy Torello, who has groomed the new property in Fort Trumbull, making it ready as needed for Electric Boat employees. As the mayor stated in his address on April 6th at the council meeting, we should try to maintain business as usual. With that said, the microtransit system, which you approved last June, is on track for launch in July 2020. The funding for that particular project will remain level, and that is why I singled out the assistance of Jeffrey Lonergan in extending the terms of that contract through the remainder of this year. I would also like to commend the State of Connecticut Department of Public Transportation, the Southeast Council of Government, the Southeast Area Transit, and Tranlock, who is the vendor that will be providing us the software to manage the circulator system, and also Marina, who is the coordinator of the Senior Center and the Senior Affairs Committee. To coin a phrase and not a pun, they have been instrumental and should be commended for the initiatives that they've taken to support this particular project. Thirdly, we continue to deploy multi-space meters throughout the city in viable commercially parking locations. Most recently, we extended our programming in the municipal lots so that someone can buy up to 7 days of parking. This will assist vacationers offshore as well as those that may want to take advantage of the Airbnb that are located within the city. And finally, we're working diligently with the members of the Grants Committee, Grants Administration to resubmit our U.S. Department of Transportation bill grant. We were upgraded from acceptable to recommended during the last round of competition, falling slightly short of highly recommended. Being highly recommended would put us on the U.S. Department of Secretary's desk for evaluation in this highly competitive process. We also would like to acknowledge our partners. Again, repeating that the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation has helped us tremendously. Cross Sound Ferry, the National Coast Guard Museum Association, our design team, and many, many others in preparation for the resubmission of our application. And that will be coming before you on May 4th with the submission of the application due on May 18th. In closing, I'd just like to say that our revenue, while it has reverted back to days of past, principally FY 16 and 17, the 1.1 million is achievable. And with that said, I sharpen my pencils as best I can with the assistance of David McBride, and our expenses are 1.1. I cannot make this statement without acknowledging our clients: Electric Boat, The Guard, Muddy Waters, Thames Gallery, Tony D's, and Waterfront. These businesses have been instrumental in providing us with a population to support our parking systems, along with Waller, Palmer, and Smith, and many, many others. The New London Parking Authority commissioners, its staff, and its vendors would like to thank you. And at this time, I'll be available to answer any questions which you may have.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Parking Director Red. At this time, I'm going to ask if President Pro Tem Nantatas, if you have any questions for Director Red.
This is President Pro Tem Nantatas. I do not have any questions.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, President Pro Tem Nantatas. At this time, Councilor Booker, do you have any questions for Parking Director Red?
Yes, this is Councilor Booker. I have a couple questions for Mr. Red. Since there is also no listed year-to-date expenses for this current year, I would like to know, how have you generated these numbers for each of the line items?
We have, this is Director Red. In response to your question, we have 7 profit centers that allow us to forecast our projections. If in FY19, as I forecasted 5 years out, You'll recall that you approved the strategic plan that I presented to you for approval a couple of months back. That is how we're able to look at our parking population, look at the business model. We use 5 years worth of financials in order to come up with a high-end number. And very conservatively, I peeled that back so it is something that is achievable. Therefore, the 1.1 million, which is really almost $500,000 down from what we were anticipating prior to the COVID-19 impact on our parking operation.
Thank you, Director Red. And Director Red, I have one other question too for the listeners as well. Can you please explain what agent operating services, LAZ, maintenance, operations, repairs, miscellaneous, maintenance, repairs, bank fees of $424,767 is used for?
In the parking industry, it has been a tradition when you do not have staff to support a parking services division that you contract with a party, a third party, that being Last Parking, to perform those said services. In May of 2018, we entered into an agreement for those services that are performed, which include all the maintenance of the parking facilities within the city. It includes the parking enforcement that is performed by staff. And that is what that particular line item is for. One of the pleasures of entering in this agreement is that Last Parking actually purchased the new parking revenue control system that was installed in the Water Street Garage at the tune of around $400,000. We are paying that back over a 5-year period, so that at the end of that term, that equipment actually belongs to the city. Again, Jeff and I were very tough at the table negotiating this because the city at that time, nor the parking authority, that had that kind of money to make that expense. So all in all, we're working on a 5-year plan in order to continue to operate as a business while staying in the traditional mode of a parking authority that does not have staff, because the parking authority only has one employee, and that is yours truly, Kerry Red, Director of the New London Parking Authority.
Thank you very much, Director Red. This is Councilor Booker. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Okay, Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions for Director Red?
Councilor John Sadi, I do have questions, but I think he may have just answered it. I see in your expenses area, there's only one salary being paid. And so my question is, where are the salaries of the people that walk around the city checking on the cars?
This is Director Red responding to Councilman Sadi. You're absolutely correct that the salaries of those individuals are included in the management fee, which Councilman Booker just asked about. And so, as I had articulated earlier, there are no direct expenses that would be salaried by the parking authority. I will point out that I did add into this particular year's budget compensation to the Department of Public Works sign staff, as well as our traditional compensation for the executive administrator that maintains both our financial operation on behalf of the city, as well as the administrator for the New London Parking Authority's boards and commissions and our meetings, filing all the appropriate papers from the municipal to the federal level to ensure that when our reconciliations are done, both Director McBride as well as Deputy Director Reinhardt can continuously say to me, we find no malfeasance, and we are able to reconcile those particular finances to the penny.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions. This is Counselor Sadi signing out.
President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Goodwin, do you have any questions for Director Red?
This is Councilman Goodwin. I do not have any questions, but thank you, Director, for your thorough presentation.
President Dominguez speaking. At this time, Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for Director Red?
Yes, thank you. This is Councilor Burke. I do just have one question. As Councilor Booker pointed out, this budget sheet does not give us any prior years for comparison. So just maybe a request that some maybe could be sent over to us. But if you happen to have it on the fly, I'm particularly interested in of the projected revenues where we've got 99,000 for citations and fines. Just curious if that figure is trending upward or if it's trending downward, or how that projection was arrived at.
This is Director Red. I will provide you with some historical data. Typically, when I put together these particular proposed budgets, it has been customary that we provide at least a 3-year history so that you will see the trends. And so I'll be able to provide that information to you through Director McBride. To specifically answer your question of the 99,000 on the citations, it is trending upwards. I can remember very fondly in FY16 when Councilman Sadi asked a similar question relative to our citations, and at that point in time, we were only generating $67,000 on a year-over-year basis. So to your point, Councilman Burke, it has been trending up. But to conclude, I will provide the historical information that you would probably want to look at. And I do apologize for not providing you with a more comprehensive document today.
Thank you very much, Director Red. I'll be happy to receive that. And again, thanks. One other, just last question. In terms of, again, projecting the revenues, I thought it was great when we waived fees over the holiday shopping season. And, I know we've waived fees at some other points. So I'm just curious, in situations like that, is waiving fees and the lots at that time something that you plan for, or something that comes up spontaneously? Does this budget plan to do the same thing next holiday shopping season?
This is Director Red. Councilman Burke, just a little bit of humor. I appreciate the softball that you're throwing me, because that is a traditional a strategy that we build into our parking system. And we look very, very, very happily for continuing that over the next 5 years, or as long as I am honored with being in this position.
Well, working at several small businesses downtown, I know it's very much appreciated. And thank you very much for tonight, Director Red. Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. President. This was
President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Dice, do you have any questions for Director Red at this time?
This is Councilor Dice. Thank you, President Dominguez. First of all, I echo what Councilor Burke requested. So thank you for giving us the history, because it's nice to compare. But I just want to say thank you for helping with the situation with the parking change on Federal Street. So I just want to put that out there. But you mentioned about signage, and I appreciate the signage that you have display up there. And I noticed that you was working on the weekends, because I was there and I saw you making sure things was being done with the new setup with the parking, not parking, but the street formation that's on Federal Street. So I just want to say thank you, Director Red, and thank you, President Dominguez.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. And finally, I just want to thank Director Red for his presentation. I'm the liaison for the Parking Authority, and you run those meetings with excellence. Is an excellent job. You're an asset in your department, so we're very glad to have you on board. Continue to do and excel in your work, sir. Thank you.
This is Director Red. I appreciate all your positive comments. I will echo only one comment relative to Councilman Dice. As I say finally to my staff and to the administration, don't tell people that I do these things because I'm supposed to have a very spoiled reputation. But after conferring with Mayor Passero on the situation on Federal and Huntington, when the state DOT came in and changed the configuration for the intersection, I contacted various state inspectors, had them come down, worked diligently with Director Sears to get his staff to assist. And again, that is why I have funding in place to support the staff, which we do not have to perform the services that we need. But the job is not done until it's done. And as I say to my lovely bride, I have work and I'll be home as quickly as I possibly can.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Director Red. And at this time, we are done with the Parking Parking Authority Department. The next area department will be Mayor, the Mayor's Department and Personnel. That will start promptly at 7:15. With that said, we have about maybe like 11 or 9 minutes. So to go to the bathroom, stretch, get out the chair, you're more than welcome to do it. We'll be back promptly at 7:15. Okay, Director McBride?
Yep, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything.
It's all right. I guess nobody was hearing me either. You're on for the mayor's department. That's tab 8.
Okay, I think everyone's familiar with the mayor's budget. It's been provided to you in a level of detail. Not a significant change from last year, pretty much the same numbers. So I'm not sure here to entertain any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. At this moment, I'm going to ask President Pro Tem Natatas, do you have any questions?
This is President Pro Temp Natatas. I do not have any questions for the Finance Director. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Booker, do you have any questions for Director McBride?
Yes, this is Council Booker. I have a few questions. Tab 8, for consulting, you have currently spent $120 and are requesting to budget $8,000 for next year. What will this consulting money be used for, as it seems you have spent considerably less this year than you budgeted for? For this year, you have budgeted $5,000.
Yeah, there's some potential consulting agreements that the mayor's in discussions with the CAO on. Not sure if the mayor, if you'd want to opine on any of the things that are being discussed internally, some of those agreements that are being discussed. Are you at liberty to discuss some of those matters? I know there's some studies that CAO would like to do as well. Internally, some of the consulting agreements for staff, motivational, and some other items.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question. Tab 7, personnel. For advertising, you have currently spent $2,053 and are requesting to budget $10,000 for next year. What will this advertising money be used for, as it seems you have spent considerably less this year than you budgeted for? For this year, you have budgeted $10,000.
Yeah, that budget is a direct reflection of the new hires. Administrator Collins has done a very good job at posting those. I'm sure you've seen them in the day. It does get quite costly. I'm not sure if Administrator Collins is on, if she'd like to elaborate on how she's developed that or how we've developed that internally, but it's due to it's directly tied to advertisement in the day and other things for new hires.
Okay. Thank you very much, Director McBride. No further questions. Councilor Booker.
President Dominguez speaking. I'm not sure if Tina Collins is on. If not, then we'll go proceed with the next counselor. That will be Councilor Sadi. Do you have any questions for Director McBride?
Thank you, Councilor John Sadi. Director McBride, No, I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. President Dominguez speaking. At this time, I'm going to allow Councilor Goodwin. Do you have any questions for Director McBride?
Thank you, President. This is Councilor Goodwin speaking. I do not have any questions at this moment.
Thank you, Councilor Goodwin. At this time, this is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for Director McBride?
This is Councilor Burke. I have no questions regarding the mayor's budget. Thank you very much.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. Next Councilor Dice, do you have any questions for the mayor's budget?
This is Councilor Dice, and I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure if Tina Collins is on, because I know she's part of it. Not sure if...
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes. There was a question. This is President Dominguez speaking. There was a question a little earlier on. I don't know if you were on during that time and you were able to hear the question.
Yes, good evening. This is Tina Collins. I did hear the question. However, I think I was muted on the other side. To answer that question that came forward, as far as advertising is, we have people that will be retiring soon. So there will be a need for us to advertise more so next year, the fiscal year coming up, opposed to last year.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez. Does anybody have, Councilor Sadi, do you have a question? I saw your hand raised. Not sure if you do.
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you very much. And again, this is to Director McBride, and it's in reference to tab 8, and it would be contribution to fire CMERS. 2018 it was 14,719. 2019 14,741. Budget this year is 14,690. And for some reason the proposal is 24,132, but then there's a number after that. Okay, so there's a $9,422 increase. Could you explain that, please?
Yes, this is Director McBride. The letter we have received from the state had indicated to budget 21.92% for CMERS, so that's a direct reflection of that. Last year, the budget was at 16.93, so that's the reason for the increase.
And there was also, so CMERS goes on percentages, and so there was a substantial salary increase. So would that be part of the reason for the substantial amount of increase in that line item?
Yes, it's multiplied times the salary. So if a salary increases, it will increase as well.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. At this time, I'm going to, okay, Councilor, that's right. Councilor Booker, you did have another question. Go ahead.
This is Councilor Booker, tab 7. For consulting, you have currently spent only $398 and budgeted $20,000 for this current year. You are requesting to budget $10,000 for next year, which is a $10,000 decrease. However, that seems very high compared to your expenses this current year. What will this consulting money be used for, and could this be reduced even more? Director McBride?
Yes, this is Director McBride. I think that's what I was referring to earlier. There's some internal discussions in regards to some consulting agreements. Not sure if the mayor wants to opine or discuss any of those that are being discussed. Certain agreements for internal staffing and other matters that would be, the cost will come down throughout this year. So I prefer to defer to the mayor if you'd like to indulge on any of the consulting agreements that are potentially going to occur.
Okay, I'm unmuted. This is the mayor. What tab are we under?
Under tab 7, Mayor Passero.
Tab 7.
For the record, that was Councilor Booker Jr. speaking.
That's correct.
And you're under the consulting line item?
That's correct.
I apologize. This is Director McBride. I thought you were referring to tab 8 in the mayor's tab. That's what I was referring to. Are you?
No,
you're
tab
referring
7
to
in the personnel.
personnel? So I apologize. I thought you were asking the repeated question from earlier. I'd like to defer to Tina Collins on that question.
Would you like me to repeat the question again?
This is Tina Collins. Can you please repeat the question?
Absolutely. Thank you, Tina. This is Councilor Booker. For consulting, you have currently spent only $398 and budgeted $20,000 for this current year. You're requesting to budget $10,000 for next year, which is a $10,000 decrease. However, that still seems very high compared to your expenses this current year. What would this consulting money be used for, and could this be reduced even more?
Thank you very much. This is Tina Collins answering the question. Thank you for repeating it. The consulting line item is usually used for testing. So as we post jobs, one of the requirements after we collect the applications is to test applicants. So that would include any written exams, and sometimes it may include a oral exam.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Collins. This is Councilor Booker. I have no further questions.
This is President Dominguez speaking. At this time, Councilor Sadi, go ahead, sir. Do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question of Tina Collins, our Personnel Administrator. When is the last time that our affirmative action plan was updated?
This is Tina Collins. The last time it was updated was late 90s. I believe it was 1998. We are in the works of revamping it this upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you. And would any of this consulting dollars be used to update our affirmative action plan?
This is Tina Collins. It may be used for that, yes.
And do you feel that the amount that you're asking for, the 10,000, given that there'll be vacancies and advertising and testing, et cetera, do you believe that the $10,000 will be more than enough to satisfy all those needs?
This is Tina Collins. Yes, I believe so.
Thank you very much.
Okay, President Dominguez speaking. At this time, since there's no other questions, in about maybe a minute, we're going to start the next department, which is going to be Register of Voters. That's tab 9. And while we wait for that department to come in, I just want to acknowledge, I know they've been on board for quite some time. Superintendent Ritchie is on board here tonight. Also Executive Director Kate McCoy, President Regina Mosley, and board members Brian, Elaine, and Jeff. I know they're later on, but we appreciate them being on board with us tonight and listening to these budget hearings. Thank you. Okay, 7:30, we're back on again. So at this time, we're gonna have the Register of Voters. That's tab 9. Mr. Giesing, is he on? Okay, waiting on voter register, Mr. Giesing. Not sure if it's on. Mr. Mayor?
The other registrar. Okay, I'm on now. This is Bill Giesing.
Okay.
And Rob Piro's here as well.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Rob Pearl.
Yeah.
So both Mr. Rob Pearl and also Bill Giesing are on. So either or, gentlemen, go ahead. State your name and then you may proceed.
This is Bill Giesing. I will defer to Mr. Perro for the start, and then I can cut in after he's done. This is Bill Giesing.
Okay, Rob Piro here. I just wanted to thank the council. I know you have a big task ahead of you. People asking you for requests. Some are you new, some are you to this process. I've been a registrar with Mr. Giesing for the last, I think, 5 years. You know, our office is driven by elections. The mayor was enough to give us an increase in our budget last year. Ever since, I think, 2016, when we had an increase of voters, we've fell behind in terms of processing and filing those applications that we're required to by law. And so we've caught up quite a bit. We saw a surge of voters within the last 3 or 4 years. So we're over 16,200 voters currently, and we'll probably see a big surge coming up in the next so many months. And we still have an issue whether or not we're going to have a primary in June. But basically, our office is driven by primaries, by budget referendums. A lot of the things that go on that you see first comes to our office if there's a referendum or there are any issues where people are looking to challenge any budgetary items. So our office is driven by the issues within town. And so this year, obviously, we've been meeting with the Secretary of State over what's going on. And our primary currently is being put off until June 2nd. And there's talk about mailing absentee ballots to all the eligible voters who are in parties for the June 2nd area that is still, as we speak, on. So those things and costs are unknown, but those are in the current budget. But a lot of the things that are coming up for the presidential, there's a lot of unknown still out there. But the budget that the mayor has recommended, I think, meets our needs.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Rob Pearl. And at this time, Bill Giesing.
This is Registrar Giesing. I would like to echo the words of my colleague, Registrar Perro. Also give a thank you to the mayor. He had received a letter from the Secretary of State asking for him and the council to support us in this next presidential election, which is a possibility of being a pretty good sized election. So there were some increases in our budget that are very well welcomed, and we want to say thank you, and we hope that the council sees fit to back up the mayor on this. Uncertainty of what's coming down the pike, whether this virus comes back again in the fall winter months, is going to be also a determining factor. We are in weekly phone conferences with the Secretary of State. So everything, as you could imagine, at this point is in flux, and I don't see that changing a lot in the coming year. But I think we have enough now to carry us through. We will probably need some help from our area departments like Public Works and other for some assistance. But this looks really something that we can really work with now. We would like to thank you on this.
President Dominguez. Yeah. President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Bill Giesing from Registered Voter. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Booker if you have any questions for the registered office.
This is Councilor Booker. I do not have any questions at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Sadi, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you both, Mr. Bureau and Mr. Giesing, for all that you do for the residents of our community, making sure they have an opportunity to vote. FYI 2018, I show regular payroll of 52,000, and the budget this year is 54,000. Was there a $2,000 increase over the last 2 years?
This is Registrar Giesing. Yes, there has been an increase for each one of us, which equaled the $2,000. This is Bill Giesing.
Thank you very much. The proposed budget for other professional technical services. This year is 29,800, and the FY 2020 is at 35,000. Given that we have a presidential election this year, is that what the reason for that increase is?
Yes, this is
Bill
Bureau.
Giesing, yes, yeah.
And
This is
is
going to pay
that
for more workers and all. This covers workers. It covers equipment, which we maybe even need some more items for protection for the voters, for our own workers and all are going to be probably coming out of that, plus some other equipment that we have to get to support an election. And on top of that, it's a lot of items that would be too.
But that's where the poll worker salaries come out of this line item.
Yeah, this is Bill Giesing, yes.
And then I noticed that there is a $2,000 decrease in postage. And it looks as though the actual used last year was only $62. Although $1,600 was used the year before, $1,927 was used the year before. Could you explain to me what the decrease in postage is?
This is Director McBride. I can comment on
I think
that. We consolidated numerous postage accounts throughout the city into the financial department to make it easier, administratively easier. So that money is budgeted into finance.
Okay, that was the only questions I have. Thank you very much.
President Dominguez Speaker, thank you. Councilor Burke, do you have any questions for either of these gentlemen?
I do not have, this is Councilor Burke. All the questions I had have already been answered. Thank you so much to Register Pero and Giesing for all that you do. And thank you, Mr. President.
President Dominguez speaking. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilor Dice, do you have any questions?
This is Counselor Dice. I do not have any questions, and I like to say, repeat and just say thank you for your services, because knowing that more people are being registered, and you guys got a awesome task ahead, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. At this time, I'm going to ask President Pro Tem Nartates if you have any questions for Mr. Giesing or Mr. Pero.
This is President Pro Tem Nartates. I do. In the budget, we have 1 full-time and 2 part-time positions. Can you tell me how many hours are associated with each position on a typical electoral year on a 12-month calendar? How many hours?
Well, there aren't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You can proceed.
Well, I don't know that there are two registrar positions, and basically my position, we're both required to have deputies, and so I have elected to have my deputy work full, to share a part of that salary. And so I think when you look at the positions of, if you're looking at the line, are you looking at the regular payroll? Is that the 54,000? Is that the line item that you're talking about?
This is President Pro Tem Nartates. Yes, I'm trying to make sense of salary versus time dedicated to this position.
So basically, I believe we each get 26,000, and so I basically have my assistant work, and that money is split. She gets 13. I believe I get 13, and then Mr. Giesing has an assistant, and he gets that other portion. So I'm not sure about. We both have office hours that are posted by statute. That we post on our doors, and then we work around the clock around election time.
For the record, that was Mr. Paris responding to President Pro Tem Nartatis.
This is Bill Giesing responding to Councilor Natardez. One thing is Mr. Terrell brought up very clearly is there is our office hours on the doors posted. They are our minimum hours. It doesn't include the hours that are spent going to conferences, going to trainings that we're going to. It doesn't include the times we're going to the high school to do registrations and things of that nature. He has chosen to have him and his deputy work in that position as a team. I have chosen, because I'm retired, I work in there. Unless something I get sick or something, then my deputy will work, and then we would work that out. But for the most part, that's how that salary is paid. It's not based on hours. It's based on the fact that the amount of work that has to be done, which usually turns out to be more than most people would realize, and especially like Mr. Carroll has brought out. On election, we're talking a 40-hour work week or more. This is Mr. Giesing.
This is President Pro Tem Nartatis. So are the listed hours that are mandated, does that mean that you're physically in the office during those hours? Is that fair to say?
Yes. So
Okay.
I think
Okay,
what you would see is, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so so you have listed hours. Those are the hours that you're expected to be in the office. And in addition to that, you're saying during election, your job description requires you to put in the hours necessary to fulfill the task. That's what I'm hearing. So this is President Pro Tem Nartatis. That's all I have. Thank you, President Dominguez.
This is President Dominguez.
President Dominguez,
Yes.
this is Deputy Director Reinhardt. On payroll, they are each paid 910 hours per year for their salary.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Deputy Director Reinhardt, for that information.
Yep, this is President Pro Tem Nartatis. Thank you very much. That is exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay. You know what? At this time, there's no other questions. We're going to proceed right into education. I want to again acknowledge Superintendent Ritchie, Director Funk, Executive Director McCoy, Board of Education President Regina Mosley, Board of Education President, Vice President Jeff Hart, Board of Education members Brian, Elaine, and Rob Perro. So at this time, I'm going to yield the floor to whoever has the voice tonight. I think it's Superintendent Ritchie, and then we'll give you 3 minutes, and then after that, we can ask you questions.
Okay, I'm President Council Dominguez. This is Regina Mosley. I'm gonna just speak first to some things. Thank you everyone for listening to us and reviewing our budget book, which I hope you have. I was surprised to see when I looked at the budget request on the city website that our link to our budget was not listed there as well, which had been requested when we made our original presentation. So I'm hoping that that can be added so that the community can see the comparison between the numbers that the mayor has proposed and what the Department of Education has asked for. So I just want to paint a picture for you all briefly as we've all been hit and are struggling through this COVID-19 pandemic. Please know that all the staff that we are continuing to pay through contractual obligations, as well as our union and part-time, full-time, and hourly employees, they're all being paid because they're all still working. they're not working at home, but they're not in school, pardon me, but they're working at home. We have put in systems and fail safes to make sure that they are being monitored and that check-ins are being done. So the money that we have budgeted for this past year is being used effectively. And our students are still being served, right? They're not being served in the capacity as they get to go to the building every day, but they're being served 100% of the time for the hours that are allotted for them to attend school at home. So I want you to keep that in the forefront of your mind, that we may have slowed down for a minute, but we've never lost our focus on providing an excellent educational opportunity and educational experience for our students, even though they are doing it in most cases, hopefully comfortably in their own homes. But a lot of us already know that in other cases, they're not comfortable.
I think we lost her. Can you?
How do we move forward with the unprecedented challenges that we'll be facing when it's time for us to recover, right? We have budgeted for next year without even thinking about COVID-19 and not having been hit by such a pandemic. But now we have to look at what learning opportunities and what ways will we be able to service our most troubled students, our special education students, once we return to school. So I think that that's something that you all need to be thinking about when you make the decisions about what you will afford the Board of Education to move forward with. When you make your final decision about our budget. I also want you to remember that we are still serving our students meals, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the spring break, and hopefully we'll be able to do that even during the summer. But I mean, right now, I know that we have the opportunity to serve them over our April vacation that's coming up, and we're very grateful for that opportunity. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Ritchie and Mr. Funk for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Regina. Good evening, everybody. First, I want to thank everyone on the board here for their support thus far. It was really great seeing so many city councilors at our board meetings throughout the budget season and asking questions and engaging. And I want to thank my team who is also on the call tonight, including Beth McCaffrey, Chris Diaz with us, Valerie's with us, and Miguel as well as the board. So thank you so much. Tonight, my message is really about investing in your most valuable resource in the city, and that's your children. And I really believe that from the bottom of my heart. This budget represents over 4,000 people in your city. And it's about 3,400 students plus 650 employees, plus a whole lot of part-time people as well. So this budget was written truly aligned to our district improvement plan, to our school improvement plan, holding all to high expectations and really planning to move the needle. We have students who, we have fabulous students, but we are a district with high needs, and our needs keep growing. And we are deemed an opportunity district with the state of Connecticut because we are performing as one of the lowest 10 school districts within the state. And when you are in that category, you do receive extra funding through grants, but these grants should not cut into anything that the general fund also provides. So our budget ask this year was a 2.7% increase. Right now, what the mayor is proposing is a 1.47% increase given to the education budget. And that right away shorts our goals $557,000. And I can tell you right now that our budget is just like a lot of other city budgets where our biggest drivers are contractual increases. We have 5 contracts with increases that are 2% or 3% coming this year. So if we are going to be given a 1.4% increase, that won't even cover the cost of living at a 2% increase. And that very hard to continue to move the needle for our students, being shortened monies. We are trying to do everything we can to bring in finances to do our part, and I think we are. We are bringing in $11 million through the magnet programming, and that totals 15.3% of our budget. All of the other grants combined that we pull in brings in 37.9% of our budget. So that leaves the general fund really filling the need of 62.1% of our total budget. And we're continuing to go after every single grant that we can get to help keep taxes down, to help keep everyone working together for the same goal, and that's making sure our students have everything that they have. The Alliance funding that we do get is not supposed to help us maintain status quo in our budget and in our programming for students. It's supposed to give us the additional resources that we need to support students who are 100% free breakfast and lunch. We are performing only 23% are meeting goal in math, and only 32% are meeting goal in English language arts, according to Smarter Balance. So those are numbers that we have to move. Plus we have almost 800 English language learners from a variety of languages, almost 600 special education students, and everybody who needs our staff. So we have taken a look at where to cut. If you actually look at our budget and unpack, well, I'll give you one example. One example of something that's in our budget, and I didn't know why it was in our budget, was the crossing guards. So we have crossing guards in our budget. I've never seen that before in an education budget. And they cost us $130,000. We also have the full cost of building maintenance, and that is program 60, and that's $900,000. So those two alone have nothing to do with educating children, but they have to do with the operations of the district. But if we were to even just take the crossing guards out, our budget would be it'd be reduced again. So I guess I share that just to say there's no fluff in our budget. Everything is aligned to our goals, our needs for our students, making smart fiscal decisions, going after grants to try to do our part to help and to advocate for what we need for our students. We have a very strong district improvement plan, and I feel like we have a handle on where we're going and how we're going to get there. And we want to just keep the needle moving forward. So I thank you for listening, and we're happy to answer any questions.
This is thank President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Superintendent Ritchie. I'm just going to start quickly again. I have the question, the crossing guards, how much, the amount was that? How much?
$130,000 and 97. 130.97. And when I asked about it, because I'm fairly new here, I was told that they weren't supposed to be put in the education budget, but a couple years ago they were put in the education budget. So it was kind of one of these things that happened one year and then they were never taken out. But they used to be belonging to the police department.
Thank you. This is President Dominguez. And the other one, what was the other item to that? You said that was
program 60. So the cost of all the buildings. So just building maintenance alone costs us $901,000, $421. Just HVAC, which is connected to building maintenance, costs us $91,763 per year. So so those kind of stick out to me as if we didn't have both of those in our budget, our ask would be in the negative. So that tells me that this ask is really aligned to the needs of the educational program. Plus we're carrying those other things right now to try to make all of the operations work.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Superintendent Ritchie. I want to direct just this question to Director McBride. I know he hasn't been here, not that long, probably the same as you, Superintendent Ritchie. So if Attorney Landrigan is also on board too, the crossing guards, why is the crossing guard part of the Board of Education when it was previously part of the police department?
This is Director McBride. I'm not sure of the decision that was made several years ago, but I would imagine it had to do with an operational cost associated with the school grounds. If it directly related to the school grounds and it's an operational component of the school, someone must have made the decision that it should be a school cost.
This is President Mingus. Thank you, Director McBride. With that said, I am going to open it up for the next counselor to ask questions. Ask Counselor Sadi. Do you have any questions for the Board of Ed?
Yes, I've had an opportunity to start to review the budget. It's what, maybe 2 inches thick. I find it hard to read, less consistent than the budgets I've seen in the past. This, I guess, would be a question for Finance Director Funk. Where do we find individual salaries in this budget?
This is Finance Director Funk, and this budget does not individually list the salaries of people by name, so you won't find it in this budget book.
Not interested in by name, but for example, it has large numbers, 2 million, 3 million, whatever. But in the past, it has shown 10 teachers at Jennings and their salaries were 60,000, 55,000, 45,000, whatever it may be. So is there nowhere in this budget that those salaries are listed? For example, in our budget, let's just say we list 20 or 30 firefighters, and there is and I don't necessarily need names, but there is a salary attached to each one of those positions. And again, in reviewing this budget, I do not see 10, 20, whatever teaching positions, one assistant principal, one principal, one secretary, whatever, in elementary, whatever it may be. So, trying to figure out this budget that you're asking for a substantial increase, but pretty hard to read the budget.
I'm gonna, thank you. This President Dominguez speaking. I am going to allow Superintendent Ritchie to respond. I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
I had my book. So the book is laid out for what you're asking for. This just happens to be an example I just opened up. So for example, on the left side, it says the program. This happens to be social studies. And it says right here on the bottom, how many people at each school.
What page would that be?
I happen to be on page 27 and 28. But the whole book is laid out the same way, where you can get, I think, the answer to the question, but we're open to feedback if you need more. So page 27 specifically talks about how many of the teachers for social studies would be there per school, how many FTEs, what the total number is. And then on the next page, you have the certified salaries and the total for that, for those teachers.
So it's saying there's 13 at Harbor, 24 at Jennings, 24 at Winthrop, 24 at Nathan Hale, for a total of 85. And then you end up with a total budget of $5,671,000.
Correct. That's for elementary. And then if you just keep flipping, it's set up the same way.
Thank you very much. No
You're
further
welcome.
questions.
Okay, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Superintendent Ritchie. Let's continue with Councilor Goodwin. Do you have any questions for the Board of Ed?
This is Councilor Goodwin speaking. Thank you both for presenting and your sentiments regards to the budget itself, necessary increases. My question is to Cynthia Ritchie. With the current budget that's presented in front of you, have you and your team had chances to already look at what cuts would be made? And if you could, from a higher level standpoint, what would be the top major costs that you or cuts that you would have to make that you wouldn't want to, or that you would prefer to go without, rather?
So we'd have to circle back with my team and make that decision. The first cut that I would propose would be eliminating the crossing guards out of our budget because we want to preserve everything we can for the students.
Council that's doing this or what? No, they haven't done anything yet. They're just interviewing we're only on the second night.
Mayor Pastor.
Mayor Pastor, mute your.
Sorry, I was distracted on a phone call. Hang on.
Yeah.
A minute.
You're still on, you got to mute it.
I'm multitasking here. What was the question?
No, there's no questions that we could hear your conversation over the phone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just Mr. Mick, can you mute your mic? There, perfect. All right, proceed. I'm sorry about that, apologize. Go ahead, Superintendent Ritchie, you could go ahead.
I think I answered it. Just in a nutshell, we would work together as a team to really comb through every single line item to see if there's anything that we can find that does not affect students or programming. Quite frankly, we're more worried about the students. We're very worried about the students in the case of the COVID-19. Now, this was a whole additional extra hardship for these students that we didn't expect and is not in our budget. And if and when we can get the students back, we are, I feel like we're going to need even more resources than are in our budget. So if we have to make cuts, I'm going to have to look for anything that we can do that does not touch student supports, student services, social emotional development, academics, compensatory services for missing special education services that I'm predicting are coming our way. There's a whole lot, plus magnet. And I don't know if without being able to have our active recruiting all through spring, I'm not sure if we're going to have automatic losses for dollars there. So we will have to go back to the drawing table to look for anything that we can trim. But like I said before, my first trim would be, if possible, give back the crossing guards to the police department because they're not a function of education, to start chipping away at this $557,000 hole that may be before us. And then we're going to go after every grant we can, but the state is right in flux right now for anything new. So that too makes me worried.
Understood. Thank you. This is Councilman Goodwin speaking. And again, another question for Cynthia Ritchie. I'm sure we'll have ongoing conversation because this is an ongoing conversation throughout my school years and lifetime, witnessing, the Board of Ed and the city kind of have at it trying to understand how can we build equity and transform our schools, but trying to best understand how can we actually afford it without burdening our taxpayers anymore. So it's an ongoing conversation, and I'm happy to be a part of it. My next question would be just thinking ahead in terms of budgeting, since this is an ongoing dilemma that we always find ourselves faced with, and our kids are, left to suffer. Do you have any suggestions on ways that we could be a little bit more collaborative in this process, so it's not towards the tail end of the budgeting cycle where we're having these conversations that are so detrimental to our community?
I think we continue what we're doing. I think the new city council and the new Board of Education has been really great in communicating, working together, being present, coming out for city and community events, asking questions, not just in formal meetings, but as we see each other. So I'd say we have to continue that. It's my hope that the city council and the entire community understands the aims of the district in our strategic goals, so that we're all promoting them and we're all living them, and our vision is to be united in excellence. So I want that so much for everybody, because it really takes the community to support these students. And I do think moving forward, we're going to keep getting tighter and tighter with all of our spending. And for those of you that are new or did not know this, prior to me coming, every school and every department had their own budget, and it wasn't universal. There weren't protocols wrapped around it. There weren't procedures, quite frankly, and it wasn't cost effective. And I'll give you an example. When every school has their own budget and every leader had their own budget, you have every single person buying pencils from a different vendor for a school. That's not cost effective. Now it's different. That's why the budget looks the way it is. We pulled it together, we made it by departments, and we have checks and balances, and we're buying in bulk, and we're sharing, and we're coming together. A big hole in New London is not to have a universal curriculum for any content area, K through 12, and that's my biggest goal. We have to get that in place, and we are working hard on that this year to do that. But once that's in place and we have our materials and we're sharing and training instead of everyone doing their own thing, and we're sharing resources instead of every school just having their own things and not sharing if someone else needs something, I hope that we continue to find small costs that can help our aim as we go forward, and keep going after those grants. People do want to work with us. We have great opportunities throughout the community, and our reputation is good to have partners. So I want to continue that work too. So I can brainstorm lots for how we can try to save money, but centralizing the budget process and requisitions and how people spend was critical. And that was actually the first things I did my first year, is to pull it back together.
Thank you very much, Councilor Goodwin speaking. I will turn it back to you, President Dominguez. Thank you very much, Superintendent Ritchie.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you. I know that we don't have a lot of time. We only have 8 minutes, but this is ongoing. So I'm going to just quickly go through the councilors and see if they have any other questions. So the next councilor is Councilor Burke. Do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you. This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, President Dominguez. Question to Finance Director Funk. I believe this will be the first full fiscal year that in operation since the Paraprofessionals and Cafeteria Workers Union will have a contract. Just wondering, I mean, I've been through most of the budget so far. Seems, yeah, again, when you look at the, total in-school staff, not a lot of changes, but just speak to, maybe that contract and as well as what percentage of the increase is just, contractual obligations?
So this is Director Funk speaking. This is going to be the first full year of a paraprofessional contract. The contract actually was ratified back in beginning of February of the current year. And it does include a provision for health insurance benefits. However, that's at a rather high copay. And in the first 2 years of the contract, it starts at a higher copay and gradually moves down a bit. So we are not expecting an especially high rate of participation in the health insurance. This contract works to move the disparity between the lowest paid paraprofessionals and the higher paid paraprofessionals by increasing at a more rapid pace the lower paid paraprofessional rates. And in overall increase, we've had a difficult time filling many of our paraprofessional positions. So I think we have about $150,000 increase in the cost of paraprofessionals, and that's in part because we are hoping that we'll be able to fill positions for the entire year next year.
This is Councilor Burke. Thank you very much, Director Funk. And I have many questions, so they'll probably mostly have to be wait for the future. My second one, if you happen to have it on hand, this question is actually for Director McBride. Do you happen to have a comparison in mill rate change under the mayor's proposed budget versus if the school budget as proposed was fully funded?
This is Director McBride. I do not currently, but I can definitely pull one together and distribute that.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much. And this is Councilor Burke. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke. With that, I'll have Councilor Dice. Do you have any questions for the Board of Ed?
This is Councilor Dice, and I did have the opportunity to attend a few of the budget meeting that was held at the STEM school for the district. And I noticed that most of the costs, it looked like is healthcare again, that's increased and then required what was required. So I want to encourage you, because I know one of the questions that was posed by Rob Puro, he had asked the mayor, he said, look, what could you, if, increase this year, what could it be? And so one of the things he brought up was, let's split it. He said, we can do an increase, but it will be only so much. It was split between city side and Board of Ed. And I know one of the board member, I think it was, so I want to encourage you guys just to look at things. And I was wondering for the busing, because the other thing that came up was about parking the bus and how that was like almost 100 and something thousand. Has that been resolved? Is that still in your budget? And then the other thing I want to bring up is that's the main thing I want to bring up, but it is an ongoing conversation because we need to make it work so we can go forward. So I don't know if that was a question or more like a statement, because that's a lot to process. And thank you so much for allowing me to speak, President Dominguez, and thank you, Superintendent Ritchie, for your passion for our children in our community.
Okay. All right, thank you. This is President Dominguez speaking. I think it was a statement and a comment, maybe a question in there somewhere, but no, I appreciate your passion and also for just bringing that up. That was important. Thank you, Councilor Dice. With that said, I'll have President Pro Tem Nartatis now.
Thank you, President Dominguez. This is President Pro Tem Nartatis. Superintendent Ritchie, I've been watching your decisions over the last year, and I'm actually quite impressed with some of the cuts that you made, with some of the streamlining, recognizing that there are inefficiencies. You inherited that, right? And so I appreciate the work that you're putting in, and I find your comments, your description of the current budget situation very sincere, and I'm grateful for that. Getting back to two things. One, you had mentioned the guard crossing, you mentioned the building maintenance, you mentioned HVAC. With the building maintenance, it's true, it was on the city side for many years. And when the city realized that other municipalities, and I believe including Groton, they actually capture that in their Board of Education budget, we made that change. And I know it's a large number, but I want to make sure that, we have the discussion that, that it does belong on the Board of Education side. That's what other municipalities do. And I think that even though it's a large number, I think that we were correct in doing that. With that being said, it's a huge deficit for the Board of Ed side. I'm sorry. Okay. So the guard crossing, when the pandemic now is at it, it's at its, we haven't even hit peak. And I thought to myself, maybe we would see a decrease, right? Maybe we would see a savings on both administration on the Board of Ed side. The kids are out of school, they're at home. I know that we're doing things behind the scene to make sure that they're getting the access to education. But can you speak to the fact that you made a comment saying, if anything, you expect the resources and the budget to increase? I think that's what I heard you say. Can you speak to that, please?
Sure. I said this, I think the services are going to increase. As time goes on, I already know we have a lot of students that are, their homes are not great right now. They're not able to focus on education right now because they're taking care of younger siblings or someone who's ill or mental illnesses in the family or substance abuse. We have students that cannot learn right now because they are home. And with that comes with gap for us to work hard to fill the educational pieces they're missing, but also support them now and in the future with social emotional and trauma, and also help them. They're worried about parents who've lost their job and finances. They're worried about food security. There's a lot of emotional needs that are building up, and when you don't have security in those areas, you can't learn. So I am predicting some students may take a step back because of the situation that they're in order to move forward. And therefore, I look at our plan, every single staff member matters. We have interventionists for the first time in this budget that have never been in place before. They're part-time. I only built them for 4 hours a day, but it's that small group instruction that we need to make sure students are getting direct instruction in their levels, whether it be for social emotional needs or for academic needs. And I need people to do that. It can't be a computer. It can't be a computer to fill the needs of some of our students. We need to bring people back.
Thank you. And I see Finance Director Funk is raising his hand. Did you want to respond to that? This is President Pro Tem Nurtadas.
Yes, this is School Finance Director Funk. Just briefly, the Governor's Executive Order 7R addresses continued employment and compensation of school district employees. So where we might anticipate seeing some substantial savings in the current year, based on that, we don't anticipate seeing substantial savings. There are some areas where we may be able to trim some costs, but primarily we won't be able to. The other thing is just to say that we welcome questions. I know we're running out of time. We welcome questions that you could email to us, emailing them to Christia Francolino, and we will get answers back to the entire council next week.
Thank you, Director Funk. This is President Pro Tem Nurtadas. Just last comment. I know that Councilor Burke had recommended to give us an example. I think Superintendent Ritchie, there was a deficit. Was it 557? Is that the number that you gave? She's shaking her head yes. So I would like that number ran to see what that number is compared to the taxpayer input. And I think that is what Councilor Burke requested. Okay, so we're on the same page. All right, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I can just summarize. So it would be a difference of the proposed is giving us 1.47%. Our ask was 2.7%.
So is it, I'm sorry, this is President Pro Tem Nurtadas. So is it 2.7%? I don't have it in front of me. That's the 557,000 that you were, no, that, okay. All right, I'll
Yes.
I'll follow up directly with Director of Finance. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Yes, you know what, guys, we have ran over time. I know that Councilor Booker, you haven't had an opportunity, but I'm gonna have to ask you to just email those questions to them. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that, especially the Education Department, that we are, as a council, we will be caucusing, and I'm sure that one of your departments is going to be part of our conversation. So just to know, and many others, of course, but so we do understand, you know, the issues. We understand the concerns, and we're very empathetic to it, and we are going to do what's best for our district and for our students, and for everyone. So with that said, I apologize, Councilor Booker. I apologize for everyone else who didn't get a chance. But I want to say thank you to the Department of Education for all of them, everyone that was here involved in this conversation. So thank you. All right, at this moment, we're going to proceed then to the contingency. Okay, and that will be, I'm going to allow Councilor Booker to ask any questions. And I believe that's for Director McBride.
No questions at this moment for Director McBride.
Thank you. The next person will be Councilor Sada. Do you have any questions for Director McBride on contingency, city center district, pension trust, and debt service fund? Any of those? We're going to cover all those. So
Okay,
those are
yeah.
tab,
So
I'm sorry,
that was
those are,
going to be my first question of you, whether it's Counselor Sadi, my first question of you was going to be whether we're dealing just with contingency or all four of those areas.
no, I'm gonna deal with all four areas only because again, we don't have a lot of time allotted for this. So either just remember contingency, just make sure that you state what it is. So
Okay.
contingency is tab 16, city center district is tab 48, pension trust is 66, and debt service fund is 67.
All right, now that's clear. All right, thank you.
And again, my apologies, guys. I know I have to just stay on task with it.
You said 67 is,
Yeah, contingency is, debt service fund is 67. If you're interested in that, if you have a question on there.
yeah, this would be through you to Director McBride. I see revenues and I see expenditures, interest, principal, et cetera, but I really don't understand how to read this page. Would you please explain it to me?
Certainly, this is Director McBride. The debt service reserve fund, as you all know, is its own separate fund, similar to the pension trust fund, where the revenues and expenses need to equal out. So I guess the best way to explain it is to start with the expense side. At the end of the day, we have $7.8 million of debt comprised of the two components of the government and the Board of Ed. And you see the breakouts there of the interest and principal. So what we need to do is raise the necessary funds through the general government to pay for that debt service. We are recommending to use 1 million of the debt service reserve fund balance that the city has. This fund is a balance that accumulates over time. It had about $2.5 million in it as of 6/30/19. As you can see in fiscal 2019, $800,000 was used to offset some of those expenses. We believe it's a prudent time to utilize some of that money because it was growing. The reason for that growth is this is primarily the result of premiums that occur when we go out and bond. As an example, when we went out to bond in March of 2020, we had premiums because, without going into great detail, the bondholders wanted to pay more for the bonds, more than they were set at the rate from when they went out to bond. As a result, the city captured $900,000 of premium. So because of the overpayment of the premiums, as well as reduction in issuance costs and fees, that gets commingled into the debt service reserve fund. That fund, again, at $2.5 million, we didn't want to see that continue to grow through these bond offerings. We wanted to utilize some of it to offset some of the debt service reserve, but still to keep it a healthy balance in order to move forward and keep it so the bondholders are prudent with where it's at. So that's your 6.8, which is in your general fund, and the 1 million is from the debt service reserve fund.
Okay, so the way I read this is bottom line expenditure FY 2019 was $9,074,840.
That's
Councilor Sadi to Director McBride.
This is Director McBride. That's correct.
Okay, and so our expenditures are going to be down almost $2 million to $7,885,193. Actually, the negative would be $1,723,000.
This is Director McBride. I think you referred to the 19 budget of $9,074,000, but from 20 to 21, that is correct. The debt is 1.7 million less as a result of some, not just refinancing, but more importantly, some notes have been paid off. And the detail to all of the various notes is the second and third page. You'll see every single issuance that the city has done. That makes
the second and third page?
Yes, the second and third page following that are all the issuances for the government, the Board of Ed, as well as some of the enterprise funds. Excuse me, the water pollution control, and the stormwater.
And so then please turn to the second page. This is what I was looking for. And I apologize when they were folded. I didn't see them when I got an opportunity to read. So 2/3 of the way down, it talks about general government, and then it talks about school projects and amount of issuance. So the first school project, 3.746 is costing us $164,000 per year.
This is Director McBride. Not necessarily per year, but in next year, that is the principal payment on that project. The total cost, you would need to add in the interest cost to the left of the $122,000. This schedule includes both
So
interest and
almost
principal.
$280,000
For that
and then
particular.
the next one is 525. And then, and again, any idea how we decide which project is which? I mean, is one of these Nathan Hale, one of these Winthrop, one of these the high school, or what?
We do, this is Director McBride, we do have that level of detail. I can get that to you. I'm not sure if Deputy Director Reinhardt knows that. She prepares the bulk of the schedule, but I think it's in the background of the schedule. I'm not sure if it's, Deputy Reinhardt, are you familiar with any of that detail?
I don't have it marked what projects they are, but I can get that detail. And I'd also like to say that there are fluctuations because depending on how the bonds are sold, sometimes we pay the principal more upfront and sometimes we pay it on the back end. So that can affect the amount of debt service that we pay. But I'll be happy to get you the detail to what these projects entail.
So in that section we're talking about, there are two at the top that say refunding and refunding. Do you know what those are? Is that part of school projects, or what exactly is that?
This is Director.
The education, this is Deputy Director Reinhardt. The education are all school projects.
Including the
otherwise,
including the two that say refunding?
Correct.
So
but I
what
will get you what the actual projects are.
What I see here is principal.
President Dominguez speaking. Oh, Councilor Sadi, point of order. Excuse me. Councilor Sadi.
Yes,
you're
sir.
You're probably on your fourth question. We can come back to you. I just want to allow time. Because if not, I don't want what happened last time and I can get Booker in there. So I want to make sure. Can you just hold on to that?
I can.
Thank you, sir. All right. With that said, let's have Councilor Goodwin. Do you have any questions?
At this time, I do not. This is Councilor Goodwin speaking.
Thank you. Thank you. President Dominguez speaking. Councilor Burke, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions at this time, and if I do in the future, I'd be happy to contact the finance director. I would, however, like to use this time just to say, again, thank all of the Board of Education members and staff that are on this call. The Board of Education is, a little bit less than 50% of our total budget, yet they got 30 minutes of 3 hours apiece, which equals about 5% of our time tonight. So I will, recess my time, and I just want to again thank them all for being here. And thank you, Mr. President, for setting up these meetings. And perhaps in the future, we should allot them more time. Thank you very much.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you for those comments. Very good. That was good. Councilor Dice, do you have any questions right now?
This is Councilor Dice. At this time, I do not have any questions. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Dice. President Pro Temp Nartates, do you have any questions right now for Director McBride?
This is President Pro Temp Nartates. I do not have any questions at this time.
Thank you, President Pro Temp Nartates. This is President Dominguez speaking. Do you have any questions, Councilor Booker, at this time?
This is Councilor Booker. I just want to also say thank you. Thank you very much to Superintendent Ritchie as well, Kate McCoy, and the staff and the Board of Ed for their commitment and dedication to our 4,000 students and residents of New London, and for their effortless and to figure out strategies that will work while we are dealing with this national crisis. So thank you very much for all the work you're doing. Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Booker. At this time, I'm going to go back to Councilor Sadi. You may proceed, sir.
Thank you very much. This would be through you to Director McBride or Deputy Director Reinhardt. Staying with the same area, same page. So what I'm seeing here is we're spending $2,798,000 per year in debt service for school building projects.
That is correct.
And we're spending $5,086,000 for general bonding.
That is correct.
And I don't, does that show a decrease from last? Let me just go back here. That actually, this doesn't have a history whether or not it's less than we spent last year or more, right?
This particular page does not, but as you were speaking earlier, it probably is a decrease. As Donna had indicated, some bonds probably fell off last year. But again, I think the detail that Donna had indicated she could provide, we'll get that to you as well.
And does the 2.7 million, is that reflected in the Board of Education budget? Or does that come out of our budget?
That comes out of the city's budget. It is not reflected in the Board of Ed.
No further questions at this point in time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Sadi. At this time, Councilor Burke, do you have any questions?
No, not under this section. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So this is, just to go back again, we are covering contingency, city center district, pension trust, and debt service fund. Not sure if any other councilor has any questions for any of these areas.
Mr. President, might I suggest that the councilors who are not able to ask a question for the Board of Education be allowed to use this time to do so?
You know what? Thank you. President Dominguez speaking, because I thought about, I know that President Regina wanted to say something. I don't see a problem. I don't know. I don't, there's no problem. I know that, you know what, this is, we always are allocating 30 minutes, right? So this is over at 8:45. So.
Don't forget, we still have public comment.
Jenny hasn't received any public, well, you know what? Jenny, is Jenny, hold on. Before we move on, let me just have Jennifer Starks, our assistant to the council. Do you have any, anyone that emailed a comment besides the one? Okay.
Brian sent me the statement I emailed to you guys, but he said it didn't need to be read out loud. He just wanted you guys to have it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
President Dominguez, I think it's appropriate. We have a couple minutes until 8:45. If we want to wrap up with Board of Ed questions, I would support that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So, all right, President Regina Mosley, you can go ahead. You have to unmute. Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out how to work this Zoom thing.
Make sure you state who you are first.
Oh, Regina Mosley, President of the New London Board of Education. I apologize. I don't like talking on the computer, so I totally understand what Cynthia was saying about students not being able to learn on the computer because I'm grown and I don't like this. So anyways, What I was gonna say, what I actually typed into the chat regarding Counselor Sadi's question about reading the budget book and seeing the salaries. It's not necessarily the salaries individualized per se, but on 170 of the budget book, there is a chart of accounts that lists what each individual position is listed as. So if you look at that, and I don't know if anybody has the book with them, but the object number for certified salaries is 111, and 112 is non-certified salaries. So it goes down the line like that on page 170 of our budget book. And then on page 171, you have a budget summary by object code. So if you turn the next page, you would be able to see, again, another listing by object. And the object would be like which program it is, as far as if it's K through 12 core programming, or K through 5 core programming, or 6 through 12 core programming. You'd find that individual information starting on page 171. So I just wanted to clarify that for Counselor Sadi and any other counselors who are having a little bit of difficulty understanding our budget book. And the reason it was put out in 4 different ways is because each member of the Board of Education vocalized that we all learn differently, just like our students do, just like each individual does. So we wanted to make sure that the information was thorough and that it was presented in more than one way to suit everyone's understanding. So that was all I wanted to clarify for you all. And I thank you for allotting this extra few minutes for any additional questions. That's it.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, President Regina Mosley. Any counselor that wishes to ask a question at this time? We still have Director Funk here, or the ones that I can see. Director Funk, President Regina Mosley, and Vice President Jeff Hart is also here. And maybe others on the phone that I can't really see them, but any counselors? Kevin Booker Jr. Yes, because you know what? There you go. Guess what? You have the opportunity. Go ahead, sir.
So funny, man. Council Booker, for Director Rob Funk, why is there an increase in Alliance funding?
So the governor's proposed budget includes a $1.1 million increase in Alliance funding, and that actually follows a several-year trend where he's looking to increase the Alliance funding for the next number of years in a row. It's to address areas in which the district needs to improve its instruction.
And then on page 136 in the budget, I noticed an increase in non-certified salaries of $185,682. Can you explain why you are budgeting for the increase? And will this increase be additional funding to cover the grants writer's manager that is missing from your budget? If you are able to hire a grant writer, how will this benefit the Board of Ed and the City of New London?
I think the page numbers that I have might be different than the page numbers that you have. Can you tell me which program number it is?
Program 47. It says non-certified salaries. The revised budget is $277,281. 2021 proposed budget is $462,963, and the difference is $185,682.
Okay, this is Director Funk responding, and that program is the Human Resources and Recruitment budget, and so that would not include the salary for a grants writer, and that entire budget is general funded. And the reason for the increase is that during the current year, we've had substantial vacancies in the 2 top positions for most of the year. There is some offset, though, in an expectation that we won't incur some of the legal fees that we incurred this year in order to shore up some of the Human Resources Department.
Thank you very much, Director Funk. And I have no further questions. Thank you, President Dominguez.
Right. President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Kevin, Councilor Booker. Is there any other counselor that has any questions? Go ahead, Counselor Burke, please.
Thank you. This is Councilor Burke. Just real quick to Director Funk. Superintendent Ritchie had mentioned the 900,000 for building maintenance. Do you have a section number or a page number with that? I was trying to control F in your budget and didn't find it.
This is Director Funk, and the program number is Program 60. Just to clarify, Program 60 is building maintenance. Program 61 is custodial. So you should be just looking at Program 60.
I found it. Thank you very much. And to anyone, just get on the record, I did put the link to the Board of Ed's budget in the chat here, if anyone wants to follow along at home. Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. President.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you, Councilor Burke, for doing that. Obviously, for those that weren't able to attend the budget hearing for the Board of Education meeting, you might not have the book in front of you, but of course, it's going to be online. So that's just in case if you seem a little lost. That's why. Okay. Some have it that attended, and those that don't have it, you can, like Councilor Burke pointed out, you can find it on the chat, and then use that link and find it there. Okay. Any other counselor that has any questions? Go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time in case anyone else had questions, but let's see. Is Miguel still on here? I was curious. Miguel Gauthier?
Yeah, I see he is.
Yeah, just
here.
He's here.
Miguel, thank you very much. Yeah, so I just now that I found that page, I just wondered if you could, give a little bit of an explanation of some of these things, how, what some of the increase are going towards. I see $43,000 for capital, 832 for repair and maintenance. Just sort of a breakdown of where the increases.
What page are we talking about?
Councilor Sadi, that is page 195.
Thank you.
All right, and what was the line that you were referring to? I was just looking at the budget book too.
Yeah, so page 195, program 60, just in the if you could just give a breakdown of, I see the total increase for facilities building repair is 154,000, and just sort of give a breakdown of either to you or Director Funk of just, what the difference between professional services and the direct maintenance, office supplies, et cetera, is there.
Sure. Okay, so on there.
I can start if you want, and then you can jump in.
If you want, yeah, I'm just trying to find the page so I know the numbers.
Okay, this is Director Funk, and the first line, other professional services, $125,310. That would be for a dedicated HVAC technician who would be doing repairs. We spend several $100,000s a year on HVAC repairs throughout the district. And this year we actually added that technician in, for the purpose of trying to reduce the cost of repairs because it's a much more efficient way to pay for them. Line 430, repairs and maintenance services. That includes the HVAC preventative maintenance contract outside of what this dedicated repairman would do. That also includes some of the large projects that we've had to do in the past. For example, last year, I think it was, we replaced the chiller at Benny Dover. That's like a $30,000 cost. But any sort of a contracted repair would be in that line 430. And then line 610, it's a little misleading that it's called office supplies, but essentially those are the materials that are used that are not capital purchases, but the materials that are used in all of these repairs and in all of this maintenance. And lastly, line 730, capital items, that's going to include primarily things like furniture.
And I'm on the page. If there's any questions now, I can answer. I can look at the numbers. So I think Rob mentioned the line 340. The difference is really just to make that person whole for the year rather than the 3 quarters. And I think the rest of it, Rob explained well. I can go down to program 61, if you like. The line 112 is a custodial contract, just per union contractually, we have an increase there. 610 is the custodial supplies. We're just increasing by 6,000. And the equipment capital and equipment furniture, we see a decrease because of with the 2 construction projects at the high school in Benny Dover, we're reducing the amount of furniture that we buy and even the amount of stuff that we're doing during summer cleaning. So that's where you see the savings. And lastly, line 810 is for fees. We have a core safety team that used to be 2 people. Now we have 6 people. So this just covers a lot of our training. Any other question?
That's all the questions from me. Just I'll say, as Councilor Hurtado has pointed out, with building maintenance being entirely the obligation of the Board of Ed now, we're investing in new buildings, and I'm pleased to see that, now that it's in your budget, you guys seem to be funding it the way it needs to be funded, and I'm happy to see that in your proposal. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
President Dominguez speaking. Thank you to both and everyone. At this time, it's already 8:46. I did call everyone's name at the beginning of the meeting prior to starting, and now I'm just going to entertain a motion. Before I entertain the motion, hold on. Just make sure tomorrow we are going to be once again on for our last budget hearing. It starts at 5:30. And with that said, I'm just going to entertain a motion now.
Councilor Goodwin, I would like to make a motion to end this meeting.
President Dominguez speaking. It has been
Second.
President Dominguez speaking. It has been seconded by Councilor Goodwin. All those in favor, the motion has been made by Councilor Goodwin, and now I will need a second.
Councilor Dice, second the motion.
President Dominguez speaking. The motion was seconded by Councilor Dice, and now all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night and rest. Be safe.
Have a good night.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, Regina.
Brian.
Hey, Brian was on there.
I'm here for you. Bye, guys.
Bye, Jeff. I know it's the only time I get a chance to see people. Hey, people.
Human
Hey.
contact. Oh, there's my picture.
Hey, hey, Sean.
Oh, get Rick James. Oh my God. Oh, good night.
Wait a minute. We starving for attention. It's hard for us to get off. Seriously, bye, guys. How you do the background? I need to. You guys. Somebody got to tell me.